Divesh Srivastava is the Chairman Managing Director at GIC joining in. Thank you so much for taking time out. To begin with, your gross premium income on a year-on-year basis has fallen, whereas, what is the outlook as to where we see it headed?
Any expansion must necessarily be followed by a period of consolidation. So we did expand and we expanded quite rapidly. And we realized that there are many things that in our expansion process, we had overlooked. So the whole idea was to set your processes right, set your house in order, so to say. And for that, it was important for us to prune our portfolio as well, so that any baggage that we were carrying or a portfolio that was loss making that we were carrying, we would want to shed it and make our portfolio much healthier. Exactly a journey that we embarked upon about 2 years ago. And now that we have the benefit of hindsight, we can clearly see that our efforts have paid off and our portfolio has become and emerged much healthier and stronger now. So going forward, as far as the growth point is concerned, we have been growing, yes, but now we have, I guess, reached an inflection point from where we take off and move forward, because growth is important. We do realize it most certainly.
Okay. So what are some of the targets then that you're working with when it comes to your top line growth, and where do you see the combined ratio headed?
No target as such. See, reinsurers to meet any premium target on the top line is very easy, very easy. So you don't really set top line targets. You rather have a bottom line target, which we have set for ourselves, that we would want our combined to be as close to 100 as possible. And which is what is happening, because our incurred claim ratio of the underlying portfolio is coming down. So we are very happy the way we are progressing. And the guideline or the target, as you mentioned, is to get a combined ratio, which is the real worth of a reinsurer, as close to 100 as possible in the shortest possible time now.
What would be that shortest possible time? If you can talk to us about that, because combined ratio of 100% seems like a bit of a tall ask.
See, it's difficult to give you something very precise, because when you see the trade of reinsurance for our portfolio, which is almost 90% treaty based, treaty is a long-term, arrangement that you get into with a cedent company. So in that treaty, which is 90% of the book, essentially the Indian market renews on the 1st of April. The international business largely renews on the 1st of January. That means we get essentially just 2 days in a year to set our portfolio right. Now, to turn a ship as large as GIC around is not easy. So it takes time. But as I was mentioning earlier, from the trends that are available to us for the last 2 years, when we have been assiduously working towards a lower combined and a healthier portfolio, these trends clearly indicate that we are on the right track. And this is going to continue. But to put a specific date on it is I think, pretty impossible.
No, fair. I appreciate that you can't put a fixed date to it, but let me try and get a bit more color in terms of the timeline. So at least by Q4 FY24, should we see that 100% mark on the combined ratio?
You could say about 6 quarters or 6 to 8 quarters, but it is difficult. The idea is to move towards there, which is what we are doing. And the trends are absolutely clear that we are moving towards a much lower combined in our portfolio.
Now let's put the spotlight on the budget as well, and wanted to understand your outlook, because now we're going to have the new tax regime taking precedence over the old. What is your outlook as to how that could impact the insurance sector and the consumer?
See, this new tax regime that the government came up with quite a couple of years ago was actually formulated after a lot of thought had gone into formulating this new tax regime. I mean, the entire Department of Revenue, all of them put together, expenditure, they all put together. They had thought of this new tax regime after a lot of feedback, and that is how when the new tax regime was rolled out. Now, when I see it today in our post this budget, this is a much better tax regime for us as corporates, because we pay a lower tax. But since your question primarily is towards the individuals, as I was saying earlier, thanks to COVID, people now actually want to buy health insurance, and it is not for tax benefit alone. they feel the need of protection because health costs have gone up. Now, if that be the case, then this tax really becomes a matter of supreme indifference to an individual because he is looking at protection. Similarly, also for your life insurance, when you see the tax is increased for this very big ticket. Now, 5 lakhs is a large amount. I mean, I'm sure you and I both don't pay that sort of a premium for a life insurance product. So this is something that is, I think, going to affect less than 0.5 or maybe even 0.1% of the people buying life insurance. I really don't think it merits any thought.
Yeah, that's true. And given that your expenses of management ratio that shot up slightly as the top line expands, do you think we can expect it to come back lower?
See, GIC's expense ratio at below 1% is possibly one of the lowest in the world. I mean, we don't know of any other reinsurer who has such a low expense ratio. In fact, that is one of the USPs of GIC. Because our gross premium income has decreased a wee bit, therefore it has, just crept up a bit and just crossed the 1% line. But then as we grow, it will come back to below 1%. That is one of the big pluses we have in the GIC way of working, that our expenses of management are so low compared to the rest of the reinsurers globally. So that is not a matter of concern at all for us.
Okay, Mr. Srivastava, and COVID is now firmly behind us, right? And for the sector as a whole as well, any specific trends that you're seeing post-COVID, whether, there can be a bit of challenge on growth, or what's the claim situation panning out like?
Right. To answer the first part of your question, COVID, of course, was a huge dampener on our operations globally. I mean, we are not the only ones. Globally, it was one of the worst catastrophes to happen to the industry. But when I see it from the Indian context, COVID did to India, the Indian insurance industry, something that, decades of advertisement could not do. People actually started thinking of having health insurance as a necessary spend, which was a green shoot for us. Because when you start having health to start with, you start thinking in terms of other insurances as well. And that is how the kitty expands and becomes profitable for us. And it also gives you a diversification of the risk. So COVID was bad, but it's all behind us now. And our claims are back to normal, nothing exceptional that we can think of. In fact, the health industry has done exceedingly well. Even when I was looking at the figures for January, the standalone health companies themselves have grown about 25%. And large part of this business is because of retail business, which is even better. That means a common man like you and I, we are now thinking of buying a health insurance portfolio, which is good. Now you're talking about the other part of more claims coming in. No, COVID is firmly behind us. It is business as usual now. And with the risk adjusted rate change that I was mentioning, with the risks having a better rate to command, because globally there's a tremendous amount of shrinkage of reinsurance capacity, these rates will ensure a lower claim ratio as we go forward.
Okay, but currently there are a couple of areas which are actually dragging your numbers, right? And one of such areas is marine. Can you talk to us about what kind of consolidation do you see in this space?
See, reinsurance is the tail that wags the insurance dog. That is how this entire business functions. Now, you're talking about marine. So largely what you're seeing, that what you call as a drag, is because we were pruning our portfolio. Because we were carrying a lot of baggage with us and portfolios that were loss making. Now, since our whole idea was to, turn around the ship and get into a bottom line mode, that is why we've been pruning our portfolio. And going forward, we have seen a good risk adjusted rate changes happening in this first January renewals.
Okay, we'll let you go on that note, but more importantly, we have the Home Minister Amit Shah speaking about the entire saga which is going on with the Adani Group. Let's cut across.